My name is Elle Baker. I'm the Open Space Environmental Planner for the City of Revere. It's so exciting to see all of you here supporting this amazing project. This started out with the Riverfront Master Plan in 2020, and as a result of that, we sort of all divide and conquer and tried to get funding to advance so many resiliency parcels and economic improvements for this riverfront area. So this particular project is the Riverfront Resiliency Project. It actually ties in three particular parcels, starting with Gibson Park, which you see over here to your left, the boatyard, which was the former Boat Works, which was acquired by the city a few years back. This will be transferred into a community boating center, which ironically, in a city surrounded with water, we don't really have a launch for kayaks, canoes, stand-up paddle boards, and we certainly don't have the sport of rowing, which we envision will be a unique opportunity here in this facility as we move forward. And then the anchor of all of this is the Riverside neighborhood, which is sorely in need of resiliency efforts to help with the inundation that they're having on every king tide and now mostly almost every high tide, which the river is overtopping the barrier here and onto the road, which you can see in so many of the photographs here. So this particular project would all tie together to have a much more resilient riverfront, including improvements for recreation here at Gibson Park, in which we'll remove some of the subsurface soil, which will be used to fill the bags that will create the berm that goes the entire length of Mills Avenue. So those two resiliency projects tie together, putting subsurface storage for stormwater during the most high tides. And then over here along the shoreline, we have a lot of shoreline restoration, restoration of the salt marsh, and we will incorporate raised walkways throughout the park so that it keeps people off of the marsh and gives it an opportunity to grow. It also improves the vistas and also improves the walkability of the park itself for any of the residents that want to enjoy that. It will tie the new economic development that we have over here at Gibson Point. The walkways will all tie in and work together, so it will go from that facility on to Gibson Park and tie in directly to this site right here.
First, happy St. Patrick's Day. I know you see hints of green all around, even though we are mostly an Italian community. We'll say happy St. Patrick's Day. Thank you all for joining us here, the Riverfront neighborhood in the city of Revere. But today we're going to call it the end of the rainbow because we are celebrating a federal pot of gold. I know, really corny, but I've only got less than a year left, and I'm just going all in. So I was gonna make a joke, and he's not here today, but I'll make this joke anyway. That the Congresswoman is such a big draw that you see the number of elected officials with us today, and even those who don't believe in climate change are here. And he's not here, but I'll say that anyway and put that out into the world. And he knows who he is. So, Tony, I hope you're doing well. We are incredibly lucky to be joined today by the most influential Revere resident that in my time, and certainly probably in history, the Democratic whip of the United States House of Representatives, Katherine Clark. Yes, let's hear it for that. Congresswoman Clark. And the opportunity, Congresswoman, for you to come and see the great work that's happening in the city of Revere and what your leadership down in DC allows us to do on a local level really is a special opportunity. I want to thank a lot of folks who have helped make this possible. You know, there's a phrase that Lieutenant Governor Driscoll uses an awful lot, and it's plan the work the plan. And the work here really started in earnest in late 2019 and into 2020 with the Riverfront Master Plan. And we were able to bring a number of people together to allow that to happen. And that was private investment from the folks at Redgate, public investment at the state level from HED, MassWorks grants, Seaport Economic Council grants, and public investment on the local side. The city put money in to make sure that this project could happen. And we've had a tremendous amount of support from all these partners that make real change happen in a community. And so we can't do this alone on a local level, and to have federal, state, and local partnerships, and of course partnerships with associations like the Mystic River Watershed also allow us to make things happen. So we're here today, as many of you heard from Elle and from the Congresswoman, that we have $1.9 million awarded through Congresswoman Clark's office to help us tackle the largest quality of life issue down here in the Riverside neighborhood, which is flooding. And as you can see on the poster boards, this neighborhood suffers from some brutal coastal impacts. And the changing climate conditions, which Tony does not believe in, but are real, will only get worse if we don't address this now. So you heard a little bit from Donnie Charamella, our Chief of Infrastructure, and I'm usually riding along with him with my boots on and taking notice of the things that happen. And he's the one that's calling me late night or early mornings with the text messages and the pictures, many of the pictures that you see here. And I'm not going to speak on his behalf, but I know how happy he is about having funding like this that allows us to improve the neighborhood here. So we just want to, on behalf of the residents and behalf of the city, thank the Congresswoman today, and thank so many of our partners that have made the plan really work. And we're incredibly excited to, and we'll make sure we time this correctly, to announce Congresswoman Clark.
Thank you. It is so good to be back home, and thank you to my mayor, Brian Arrigo, for that kind introduction, and to you and your there he is. To you and your staff, thank you for your partnership, for your expertise in making a real difference in Revere, in this neighborhood, and in the Commonwealth overall. And I am grateful to stand here with Representative Giannino and Turco and our city councilors who are here. It is my privilege to fight alongside with each and every one of you. And I am proud to say we are getting results. From City Hall to Beacon Hill to Capitol Hill, we are fighting for the greener, safer future that our kids deserve. And because we know how much is at stake, climate change is the existential threat of our time. You only need to turn on the news to see this is a global crisis with local impact, like right here in this neighborhood. And it's one that requires an all-out response at every level of government. Down in Washington, House Democrats are doing our part. We enacted the largest climate investment in history, turbocharging renewable energy and slashing carbon emissions. We're investing in more sustainable infrastructure, and we're bolstering our climate resilience. We are equipping communities like Revere to be the leaders in the way forward. And as you know, I've taken on a new role in the Democratic caucus, and I am committed to using that platform to fight for the future of our neighborhoods, of our Commonwealth, and of our planet. And that starts with the federal budget. So I'm proud to say that we have been able to bring home $11 million in climate funding to Massachusetts Beth. And I'm thrilled that that includes nearly $2 million for the Riverside neighborhood. And under the mayor's leadership, this investment is going to be put to work, building a new seawall, bolstering Riverside's drainage, and protecting our neighbors from the rising threat of floodwater. This is a vital step forward for this community, and I'm proud to be in this fight with each of you, including our next speaker, who I am proud to call my friend and who is a key voice for climate action on Beacon Hill, Representative Jessica Giannina.
Good morning. Thank you, everyone. What a tough speaker to follow. I'm really excited to be here with you all today as we really applaud Madam Whip for this funding and talk about the collaborative effort between the City of Revere, the state, and the federal partnership that's going to get this project done. This started for me on the City Council back in 2019, as the mayor alluded to, and I was a member of that committee for the master plan. And when we sat and talked about this neighborhood, an environmental justice community, as you can see by our planes that go overhead, and the antiquated incinerator that is the oldest in the country across the way. We talked about 3 things that we identified as priorities for this area. Number 1 was flooding. Number 2 was accessibility to the Point of Pines River and to our watershed. And number 3 was recreation. How could we have such a beautiful coastline and such beautiful resources without recreational opportunities that were accessible to our residents? So I'm really proud that this project is going to be a bridge for all of those gaps. I can't tell you in the last decade that I've represented this neighborhood how many times I've driven through here in snowstorms, during king tides, during floods, where we had residents who had water up in their basements, up in their garages, over my head, right? These are the quality of life issues that this is going to have a real impact on. Up on Beacon Hill, I'm working on a piece of legislation regarding natural carbon sequestration, and what that means is how our salt marshes work and are just as important as our forests and how they take carbon out of our atmosphere. And I'll tell you, there aren't many opportunities that we have to add to our salt marshes. So the fact that this project, it's not putting a concrete wall, we're not putting hard, unnatural structures, we're putting a vegetative berm that's going to allow natural resources. It's going to help our marshes come back. It's going to help with the wildlife and everything that we have to offer in this beautiful area. And it's a unique solution. I'm really, really excited to be here, and I'm overwhelmed that, it's been a long process, but I think the fact that we're standing here today and that we're going to be able to see results in several years, that you'll be able to walk down a boardwalk from a tow yard in a boat yard and be able to take your family here to enjoy the park, to make this neighborhood walking accessible, which it's not currently, are really, really great accomplishments for the City of Revere that I'm proud to work with at the state level, and so grateful for our federal partners. We couldn't have done it without. This was a collaborative effort, and without everyone's involvement and everyone sitting at the table saying this is a priority, these residents deserve better, our neighborhood deserves better, we wouldn't be standing here today. The next speaker that I have the pleasure of introducing is the current representative for this neighborhood with redistricting last year. Representative Turco now represents all of Ward 5, which includes Point of Pines and Riverside and this beautiful area. So I know he's going to continue the fight on Beacon Hill. He works closely with me every day as we tackle the issues in this neighborhood. Representative Jeff Turco.
I do whatever Jessica says on the Hill, and that keeps me out of trouble. So I first want to say Happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone. Again, quoting the mayor. Senator Edwards could not be here. She had a conflict with another event in her district. Obviously, her district's 4 times the size of our representative district, so we thank her. Ben from her office is here, and we thank him for being here. I'm going to go a little off script because we've talked about climate resiliency and climate change and what the good work we're going to do with the money that the great Congresswoman and Whip has got for us. But in the last couple of weeks, there's been some rather craziness on television. And frankly, it's cast aspersion and on people that deserve our respect and our honor. And so I want to go off script and thank the members of the United States Capitol Police that are here every day for what you do to protect our great Congresswoman and the people at the Capitol in the United States in Washington, D.C. So thank you for what you do every day. You know, we are so blessed to have Congresswoman Clark as our Congresswoman. she was smart enough to leave Melrose and come to Revere. So right away we knew we had to keep her. And the fact that her colleagues in Washington saw she had basically a meteoric rise in leadership, and it's because of her commitment, her dedication, her understanding of issues that are important to people, not just in Revere and in her congressional district, but in the United States of America. And so I just want to thank you, Congresswoman, Madam Whip, for your leadership, for never forgetting where you came from, and for taking care of things like this that are so important for the people of this neighborhood. Thank you very much. I'm a fan of the Seaport in Boston, and whenever I'm in the Seaport with my wife, I always can't resist commenting. She always laughs at me because I say it every time I go there. I said, you look at the Seaport and you think this used to be parking lots. And it was the vision of one man, Tom Menino, who set out and said, we're going to build a new city within a city here in the Seaport. And the fundamental transformation that's happened in that Seaport is really, again, about one man's vision. And when I look at an event like this, and I think of the resiliency efforts that we're doing, the fact that in a few short years, we're gonna have young kids learning how to boat and canoe. When you look at what's happened on Revere Beach with the hotel, with the restaurants, 20 years from now, Mr. Mayor, people are gonna look at your leadership over the last 8 years and really say, this is Brian Arrigo's leadership and vision for the city, that he didn't forget his people, and he made sure that we had a better place for the next couple of decades. So thank you for your leadership very much. And finally, because Lorette is here, my teammate, Rep. Janino, and so many others, once we get this done, the resiliency part, and we protect this neighborhood, and we get this boathouse going, and Damien gets his project done there, we squeeze another $350,000 out of you, hopefully, to build a new park. I can't wait to be here when we sit there and we put a flag on the top of that landfill over there and say, no longer are we going to allow them to put ash into an unlined landfill that's destroying this ecosystem here in this area. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. Wade, you wrote a little note of who I was introducing next, but it's missing here. So Julie, come on up. I'm sorry. There was a note here. Somebody took it. Thank you very much.
You're good. Okay. My name is Julie Wormser, and I'm with the Mystic River Watershed Association, and I'm a wicked fangirl. So you're such an extraordinary leader, and I'm sorry that you don't have more partners to make it easier in Washington. But as you know, it's easy here. You have such good local partners at every level, and look at what we can accomplish together. And I wish that for you through your career in Washington one day. And I'm sorry it's so hard there, but I'm glad you can come home and be with people who really deeply care about you and respect you so much. We are so grateful that you represent us. Thank you. No, it's true, and it's been my gift. I 5 years ago, with the 20 communities in the Mystic Watershed, launched the Resilient Mystic Collaborative, and we've been working for the last 5 years, first to understand our risks, then work with communities on solutions, then work on getting funding to put these solutions in place, and now finally building things. And you have done so much to bring the money home, as has the state, to now start to see the fruits of all our labor. And so, to speak very quickly, because it is a little chilly, thank you so much for all you've done, all we are doing together. And the next person to speak is somebody who's going to directly benefit from your work, Lorena LaCentra, who lives here.
Good morning. So typically when I see all of these people gathered here in the neighborhood, it's because of a natural disaster that they're witnessing, or potentially another malfunction at the Wheelabrator trash incinerator, or potentially another fire going on over there. So I'm totally grateful that today is a happy day and that we're all here for a great reason. And that is hopefully to mitigate a natural disaster in the future. This neighborhood is one of the most flood-prone neighborhoods in the city. Over the past several decades, we have witnessed much more frequent flooding in addition to just the volume of water and the damage that we've seen happen from it. So I'm so very grateful that from a city level, a state level, a federal level, everybody has joined hands and gotten together and said, yes, there is a problem here, and yes, we need to help them and we need to mitigate the situation. So I am truly grateful. Thank you to everybody here today. Hopefully, once this is built, we'll have protection and peace of mind, and that's important. So thank you. And I am here to introduce my neighbor and friend, Elaine Hurley. Of course, Elaine.
Well, I live in the corner, right over there. The grayish blue house. And my house was built in 1952. And it wasn't long before the downstairs windows had to be taken out and smaller windows put in. And the 2 doors that were downstairs had to be taken out. Because the tide come in. It just comes in, surrounds us. And somehow we got the ACEC in here, and at that time we had a floodgate project. We were working with the Army Corps of Engineers. They were going to put a floodgate that was going to protect not only Revere, but Saugus, Lynn, Linfield, Melrose, all the way up. We worked on that for 4 years, but when it came time to fund it, it didn't go through. So I'm really glad they worked really hard on getting this funding. My house becomes an island at a full moon tide. So maybe once a month, maybe not quite as high all the time, but if it's a little storm behind it, it gets really high. We can't make plans to go on vacation. My husband will not leave. He looks at the tide charts, because what are you going to do? You can't leave somebody that doesn't know what to do. I mean, we have to have pumps hooked up and everything else. When I worked, I used to have to keep boots in my car, because when I come home, if it was a high tide, I couldn't get in my house. So this is long overdue. I'm so excited, and I just hope and pray that it works, keeps us high and dry. And I really want to thank Congresswoman Clark and everybody else up there that's done such a great job getting us this money and getting us this project. Oh, who am I introducing? Go ahead, John.
Good morning, everyone. Elaine Hurley. No one in the Riverside or in the city of Revere has done as much as Elaine to prevent building down here on this site. When I first got on the city council, they proposed 50 units down here of housing. We stopped them with Elaine's help. Then a few years later, they talked about a 40B project, 70 units, okay? With Elaine's help, we stopped. Finally, I talked with the mayor, and we discussed what we were going to do. And the mayor said, I think I can get the money. Let's purchase the property. This property now, 50,000 square feet, is now owned by the city of Revere. And it's going to stay that way forever, as far as I'm concerned. And there'll be no development down here. I also want to take this opportunity. I didn't prepare any remarks, but I want to take this opportunity to thank our Assistant Speaker. I got a call back in 2013, and my daughter answered the phone, and she said, "Dad, there's some Mrs. Clark is on the phone." And I went to the phone, and it was Assistant Speaker. And she wanted to meet with me. And she was meeting with just about every elected official in the city of Revere. So I met with her, at the coffee shop. I'm sure you remember that up on Squire Road. And she asked me for my support, and I said I have two things that concern me in this city right now. The first is the commuter line that runs from Rockport all the way up to Boston, okay? We're about the only city on the North Shore that doesn't have a commuter rail station where people can get off and go over and connect with the Blue Line.
On
And
cue.
And I mentioned that to her, and like any good politician, she said, I'll look into it, okay? Lo and behold, about 2 years ago, there was a piece in the paper that I glanced at quickly. It was a $4 million grant from our assistant speaker to put design a commuter rail station at Wonderland. And I can tell you now, the way she's moving, that's going to happen. It's going to happen very soon. The next thing I talked to her about was the flooding. She said, like any good politician, I'll see what I can do. Well, this is what she can do. We're getting a brand new berm all the way down to Archer Avenue, I believe, that far down, from up here. And I've seen the water down here, and it's not a picnic. It's a tough thing to deal with. And it's not a wave action. It's water just, the tide gets high and it comes up. I guess Al Gore had the right idea years ago. So I want to take this opportunity personally to thank you, Madam Speaker, Assistant Speaker, for your input into the city of Revere. I know when that train, with all the money on it, leaves Washington, D.C. going across the country, I know Katherine Clark is in the engine of that train, not in the caboose, and that train is going to stop in Revere every time it leaves with money from Washington, D.C.
I'll wrap up and just say thank you, everyone. I do want to acknowledge a couple of people that are behind me. Council President Patrick Keefe, City Councilor Stephen Morabito, Councilor at Large Jerry Visconti, and of course our partners at the state level, Undersecretary Ashley Stolba and Juan Vega. Thank you for being here as well. So thank you, everyone. Really, really blessed.